Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jett.
So my piece here is a bit more unique than the others. It's not an opinion piece, it's more a guide that I wrote, because I'm not good at writing opinion pieces. It's titled An Advanced Guide to World Building from a Beginner's Perspective. And it's kind of long, so brace yourselves. World building. Building blocks of a fictional story. With it, you are free as to your guidelines and limitations, able to create whatever you want. The problem is, world building is challenging at best. An online guide may typically talk about world building from the perspective of a more experienced individual from the craft, which, to clarify, is not a bad thing by any means. It's good to get information on the craft from somebody deeply involved in said craft. But sometimes the details can be hard to follow, and that's where I come in. As an individual getting into world building, I'm taking it upon myself to give a more simplistic guide on more advanced facets of world building, namely on the scope of creating an entirely new region, world, or universe from scratch instead of an alternate Earth. Now, as a brief disclaimer, I am not and should not be your be-all and end-all resource. As the title suggests, I'm a beginner. My knowledge on the topic may have inaccuracies, and some of what I say is pulled and paraphrased from various resources, which I have linked in the footnotes, and I highly recommend checking out said resources once you're finished here. First things first, you want to find out your reason for world building. Are you telling a story, or world building for world building's sake? Regardless of your choice, there are several things to look out for and to follow. In the world building for a story category, your biggest danger is what's known as world builder's disease. To summarize, you focus so much on world building that you unintentionally move from world building into the world building for world building's sake category. In other words, you spend so much time world building that you actually forget to write your story. This is a problem you need to avoid desperately if you plan to actually make a story. Though if your motivation changes at some point for making a story to just world building, then it's a non-issue. There are a few ways to cut down on world builder's disease, starting first and foremost with cutting down on detail. Telling a story, not a lot of smaller details may become. I realize that typo there.
That's okay.
A lot of small details may become completely unused. There's not saying you should cut out small details. Sometimes they'll be important depending on what happens in your world. In this instance, it should be more important to think as to what your protagonist and antagonist will do and where they go. It may be more important to get a general idea of where your characters will go and what they'll do before you actually establish what where is and what will be done. If characters go to a restaurant, for example, it could be important to establish what kind of restaurant it is, as a free choice could be telling as to what your character is doing or what they are, or who they are. Or perhaps for a sci-fi story, you want your character to fight a robot, which then gives you a small window of things for your plot and world building. Why are they fighting a robot? What can the robot do? Who made it? Are there other robots like this one? And as for the more tactical world builders, there's a lot more freedom in what you can do. There's a little risk of you telling a story that you forget to world build. Now, the biggest danger with casual world building is burnout, though this can apply to those who world build to tell a story, so watch out for that too. If you stress too much about aspects for your world building, you run the risk of losing motivation from how stressed you become. My biggest advice is to take things slow remember that you're doing this casually as a hobby, and focus on a little bit at a time. It's okay if I stop there.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. Come on, give me a hug, Yeah, good job. Who else do we have?
Next up is Noreen.
Woo!